Since the dawn of civilization, the rich have always had it better. I mean, we used to distinguish based on land rights and who can afford a fancier horse, but now it seems like this is going to translate itself into the future too. With the space race being a thing of the past, modern times are seeing the extensive capitalization of space. We clearly have moved past the Cold War space race, and now space seems to be up for grabs for the super rich. In fact, just recently, in space, the world saw its richest astronaut. Kids who have dreams of becoming an astronaut typically sign up for the Air Force or with NASA, but it turns out that money can buy you shortcuts to anything. And in today's video, we will be talking about how space welcomed its richest visitor yet, so stay tuned. It is definitely a rich man's world out there. I mean, the rich always seem to get what they want, from fancy cars, big homes, nice boats to private jets. Nowadays, they can even get their own rockets, and if they are rich enough, an entire dedicated firm to see their intergalactic fantasies come to life. Honestly, the rate at which we are going indicated that the rich would start claiming their stakes in space. Rich guys giving pep talks is really so generic. They might say, "Wake up, dust off and follow your dreams," but they conveniently forget to mention how you also need over $1 billion to do that. Seriously though, jokes aside, what recently happened was really phenomenal, and it goes back to years of hard work, dedication, and big money being spent. With a net worth of over $207 billion, Jeff Bezos has frequented the #1 spot in the list of the world's richest people. The story of this space mission goes back decades. 6 years after 1994, when Amazon was founded, the new tech company had taken the world by storm and untapped market potential that no one knew existed. Jeff Bezos was growing exponentially in his net worth, from just $150 million in 1997 to over $6 billion by 2000. Around this time, he was at his prime. With enthusiasm being his defining characteristic, he could see flashbacks of his childhood fantasies. You see, as a kid, Jeff Bezos had a different dream compared to how things ended up with him founding Amazon. Little Jeff had fantasized about how one day he would create and operate hotels in outer space. He had a dream of not only traveling to space, but also gradually developing colonies where people would live and keep the Earth clean and beautiful. Basically, our planet could be a vacation home whilst we live our actual lives in outer space, and frequented the many hotels owned by Jeff Bezos there. Well, as far-fetched as it may seem, Bezos was in a position to realize that dream to some extent in the late 90s.
I would like to go help explore space.
So he and his science fiction buddy, Neil Stephenson, came up with the idea of establishing a space company. Hence, Bezos formed Blue Origin in the year 2000. With a ton of money to facilitate operations and a number of experts on board to propel this company in the right direction, Blue Origin had a pretty solid start. If a billionaire owning a space company rings a bell, you are probably familiar with SpaceX. Well, interestingly, Blue Origin and SpaceX are kind of like competitors. The new Cold War, you may assume, is between these two Goliaths. Whilst a lot of people had fundamentally questioned Blue Origin's slower pace compared to SpaceX, it was probably because of the subtle nature of its operations. Elon Musk is kind of known to be a bit more expressive, but in the end, it might have been slower, but slow and steady won the race so far, since Blue Origin was able to put Bezos in space before SpaceX could do the same for Musk. The first vehicle tests by Blue Origin were in 2005 with a vehicle called Charon. With Rolls-Royce jet engines instead of conventional rocket engines, it was merely an experiment that only had a 95-meter high flight to test the idea of vertical takeoff and landing for future recoverable vehicles. This was a baby step, but in 2006, Goddard came out as the second test vehicle, further testing the concept, and next was a leap straight onto the Shepard. This was going to be the same as Jeff Bezos' own personal rocket. The Shepard became the first working model for suborbital space flights. After a failed test in 2011, improvements were made, and 2012 saw Shepard's first successful test. There was only room for more improvement, but by 2015, the Shepard was capable of conducting autonomous test flights. However, there were still going to be 7 more test flights before Bezos would board it himself, since, of course, no risks were to be taken. After all, he's worth billions, literally. Fast forward to 2021, Bezos and a few others finally went to space on 21st of July from a private launch site in Texas. The journey itself and space's actual welcoming is rather indescribably short. The Shepard took off on a vertical flight pattern. The rocket propelled the entire system at speeds of Mach 3 up to a height of 76 kilometers. At that point, the booster and capsule separated, and the booster, amazingly enough, took to its own vertical landing just 2 miles from the site. The capsule kept going higher and reached a height of 100 kilometers. At this point, Bezos and the others were finally above the Kármán line, which is considered by scientists to be the actual boundary of space and Earth. After an almost 4-minute suspension above the Kármán line, the shuttle redirected towards Earth and parachuted back to the desert. This was a very brief endeavor, but established multiple records simultaneously, since Bezos had chosen the most unusual crew to accompany him. This included himself as the richest person in space, 80-year-old Wally Funk being the oldest person in space, and 18-year-old Oliver Damon being the youngest person in space. So 3 records in a single flight. The 4th was Jeff's brother, Mark Bezos, because, of course, being the richest man's brother does have perks too. The least talked about record was the Shepard having the largest windows of any space vehicle so far. It was obvious that the richest person in the world was not going to give up a window seat. It's not like he travels commercial anyways. So everyone conveniently had a window seat because the Shepard was designed to have large windows at every crew member's seat. It is safe to say that the Shepard is the first class of space travel. This did not come cheap though. There are jokes about how Bezos spent billions just to be in space for 4 minutes. In fact, Bezos himself described the minuscule weightless sensation of microgravity for this duration as feeling so normal.
The zero-G piece may have been one of the biggest surprises because it felt so normal.
So let us give you a breakdown of those costs. Since its inception, Blue Origin has been spending a lot of money in its research and operations. Some estimates say that the company spends over $1 billion annually. The Shepard program costs somewhere north of $5.5 billion, and the entire project for this particular flight had a few hefty costs of its own. The rough estimate of how much an individual seat cost Bezos for this flight is around $28 million. All that to feel normal. Yikes! Who knows? Maybe it was worth it for Bezos. It did put him ahead of Musk in the billionaire space race all of a sudden, and that is a proud moment for any rich guy. Many criticize how Bezos and Musk want to introduce space tourism as a luxury only the super rich can afford, whilst neglecting noble causes for charity back on Earth. But Bezos claims to have nobler intentions. With all the pollution going on, Jeff Bezos claims he wants to move all heavy industries to space to better preserve the Earth.
We can move all heavy industry and all polluting industry off of Earth and operate it in space.
Whatever way you look at it, this trip was still a massive achievement for mankind. Well, that's all we got. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, that's longer than Bezos' 4-minute thrill. Don't forget to like and leave a comment. Subscribe for more. See you later.